It's the Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. It's the Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. It's the Evan edition.
Ooh, welcome back to the Evan edition. Happy Wednesday, everybody. It is another day and another week down almost. And with that means more geeky stuff to talk about. Let's go, baby. Man, we got some good stuff to talk about. So apparently there is a huge controversy with where Christopher Nolan decided to shoot 4 days of his film, The Odyssey. We're going to get into that. We finally know a little bit more about Spider-Man Brand New Day and where this takes place before Doomsday comes out. And we got some more information from Jake Schreier, the new X-Men director, who's giving us some tidbits about how his X-Men is going to be a lot different than what we've seen in previous X-Men films. I'm Evan Bernstein, and I'm your host. Let's go, baby. I am still riding high off of Fantastic Four, man. That was just, what a great conversation. If you guys have not checked it out, Zach and I did a spoiler-filled discussion on Sunday, and I've been posting a lot of clips from it, and people have seemed to like it. So really good takes, really good conversation. Even if you didn't love the film as much as we did, that's totally okay, because we still want to hear your opinion. The thing with this stuff is, movies and TV and everything in between, it's all subjective. So even if you don't agree, the conversation is still great to hear people out about how this made them feel, because this stuff makes everyone feel different in a different way, and that's okay as long as the conversation is respectful. I think there's some really good talks to be had. So before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about the show Stick on Apple TV Plus. It just wrapped up its season finale on Tuesday last week, and I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but wanted to sit here and talk about it now with you guys. This stars Owen Wilson and Mark Maron. It is a underdog story where a down on his luck has-been golfer finds a golf prodigy in the rough in a 17-year-old golfer, and basically they go on the road. Him, the golfer, the mom of the young golfer, Mark Maron, who was Owen Wilson's caddy back when he was a PGA superstar, and they find someone else along the way to be the 17-year-old's caddy. And I have to say, after watching the finale, it's really good. It is now renewed for season 2, so I would definitely watch season 1. It is a really fun watch, very heartfelt, very family is the family that you make kind of story. Owen Wilson firing on all cylinders, Mark Maron firing on all cylinders. It's funny, it's heartfelt, and it's a great time. So I highly recommend it. Stick on Apple TV Plus. Okay, guys, now let's just get into it. Let's get into our first topic, and that is a little thing called Spider-Man Brand New Day. And we were wondering, when is Spider-Man Brand New Day going to be set? Because originally this movie was supposed to come out between Doomsday, which was supposed to come out in May. This movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day, was supposed to come out in July of 2026. And then Secret Wars was going to come out in May of 2027. That is no longer happening, as Doomsday is now coming out in December 2026, almost 6 months after Spider-Man Brand New Day, if it's to keep that July 2026 date. And so we were wondering, when is this going to be set now that there's been this shift in all these movies? Well, it seems based on some set photos that we have a better idea of when this movie is actually going to take place. This comes to us from comicbookmovie.com. They say the first photos from the set of Spider-Man Brand New Day in Glasgow, Scotland have swung online, and they reveal when the movie takes place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline. And there's the signage that they're referring to. They say, as you can see below, signage has been put up indicating that construction is taking place on a building in New York that's set to be completed in December 2027. The events of Captain America Brave New World played out across 2026 and 2027, and Thunderbolts then set in 2027. The latter movie's post-credit scene jumped into the events of Avengers Doomsday with a 14 months later title card, placing the Thunderbolts movie in the 2028-2029 area. With that in mind, Spider-Man Brand New Day is almost set before the next Avengers movie, not between Doomsday and Secret Wars, as some have previously speculated. Spider-Man Brand New Day being a street-level adventure rather than another multiversal blockbuster was recently confirmed by Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, the king. He says, I think there's a promise at the end of No Way Home that for as sad as it is that Peter is forgotten by everyone in his life, we are seeing for the first time in the Tom Holland Spider-Man stories, him being a proper Spider-Man. He explained him being by himself, dedicated to saving the city and dealing with, for lack of better terms, street level crime, as opposed to world ending events. So when you do that, you say, okay, who are the other street level characters that we've seen him interact with? And of course, I love that the Punisher started in a Spider-Man comic. That great cover Feige added. I don't want to say too much, but Destin, I will say too much. Destin is doing an amazing job right now on the movie, which starts shooting very soon. And he's got 8 or 9 comic covers up on his wall in his art department that he is bringing to life in this movie, which is super cool. Marvel Studios typically releases movies and TV shows in a rough chronological order, so Spider-Man Brand New Day taking place before Avengers Doomsday was perhaps to be expected. Spider-Man Brand New Day shares a title with a controversial era of storytelling, which, thanks to a deal with Mephisto, saw the wall crawler get a fresh start when his marriage to Mary Jane Watson ended and his identity became secret again. He faced many new sinister foes during that time and was surrounded by an overhauled supporting class, including a resurrected Harry Osborn. Mr. Negative, Jackpot, Menace, and Carly Cooper were some of the standout additions in this world and are among the most likely possibilities to make an appearance next summer in Spider-Man Brand New Day. As of now, all signs point to Spidey teaming up with the Punisher to battle a Savage Hulk. We finally get a Savage Hulk again. We recently published, comicbookmovie.com recently published a feature about how the Brand New Day comics will influence the next Spider-Man movie, along with a breakdown of Spidey's best team-ups and clashes with Frank Castle. So it seems like these little tidbits, so these are actually from the movie about construction within the movie universe. It's not saying that these are going to be constructed in New York City. This is actually a part of the movie, and it gives an idea that this is going to take place a year before Doomsday, and that pretty much this is going to take place about 4 months after the initial movie of Thunderbolts. Of course, there is that title 14 months later, which probably brings us up to the point where Doomsday takes place, because as we know, the end credit scene that says 14 months later was filmed by the Russo brothers on the set of the actual Doomsday movie. And so this seems like it's going to take place shortly after the initial events of Thunderbolts, and we'll possibly get some kind of tease about the new Avengers doing their thing. Maybe we'll see some of them in the movie. I don't know. But as of now, we can kind of get a more specific timeline of when Spider-Man Brand New Day takes place. I think this is a great idea. I think it's important that we get a street level Spider-Man finally. We need him to not be attached to the Tony Starks of the world, the Doctor Stranges of the world. He gets his suit from this, he gets his suit from that person. He needs to be on his own, street level, exactly how he is in the comics. And so, by the looks of it, and by what Kevin Feige is saying, it seems that this is finally what we are getting, is a street level Spider-Man on his own, fighting street level villains, teaming up with other street level heroes like the Punisher to battle the Savage Hulk, possibly, which is not really that street level, but it gives you more of a sense of who Spider-Man is from the comics, from the grounded more storyline. So I, for one, am really excited. I think this has been a long time coming. With the Tom Holland movies, it's always been connected to Iron Man or the bigger universe, the bigger battles. New York, the world is going to end, the universe is going to end. He's battling Thanos in space. It's time to bring him down to the street level where he originated from. It's time to see Tom Holland, Spider-Man on his own, not left to, relying on MJ and Ned and the whole Scooby gang. We've seen it before and it's worked well and it's been great, but I think this is a great opportunity to use Tom Holland Spider-Man in a different way, in a way that really originates back to the comics that a lot of people fell in love with. And so I really think this is the way to go for this storyline. Of course, Spider-Man will be used in Doomsday, in Secret Wars, in a lot bigger capacity. But right now, this is a great way to bring it back. And I think this gives us a great sign of where this movie will take place, which is far away from the Doomsday timeline until eventually we do get there. So I'm really excited. I think that's great news. This is the first concrete official evidence that we gotten of where this could take place. So I'm excited. I think that's really great. All right, guys. With that down, I cannot wait to talk about this. So as you know, Kevin Feige has spilled the beans on the new X-Men director, and that is Jake Schreier, the director from Thunderbolts or New Avengers, who did a fantastic job. In the Thunderbolts, you can see that this is dealing with complex, really deep emotions that people go through on an everyday basis. And it just so happens that these emotions are going through the people that are heroes, that are anti-heroes, that inhabit the MCU. And it was a great way for Jake Schreier, who's famous from, Beef, which deals with drama and anger and depression, and really puts this into a superhero world. And so when it was announced that Jake Schreier was going to be the director of the new X-Men, it made perfect sense because, as he's been saying, X-Men is inherently interesting and complex material. And this comes to us from Deadline. Deadline is saying that Marvel boss Kevin Feige confirmed that Schreier would helm the film X-Men, the new iteration from the MCU. And although the filmmaker can't give too many details on the movie, he did discuss the comic book superheroes. He says, without going into too much, really almost any detail, what I can say is it's just inherently interesting and complex material. Schreier noted that the core idea of what X-Men is involves complexity, adding it's an incredible opportunity with super interesting characters and much internal conflict. These characters are wrestling with their identity and place in the world. that's inherently interesting and complex material. The director said it was fair to say that the new take on X-Men characters would be different from the versions before, saying, to be able to explore all of the ideas that are inherent to the rich source material, but also at the scale inherent to the source material, that's likely a very rare and fortunate opportunity. That's very exciting. Deadline exclusively reported in May that Schreier was the top choice to take on the X-Men reboot following the success of Thunderbolts. Feige acknowledged in an interview with Comic Book that the X-Men characters have had many movies on screen and a lot has been done, but he also said there's so much more to tap into. Kevin Feige says there are so many sagas within sagas for X-Men that's part of what we're talking about now. Which saga to grow and build to while doing the most important thing, which is introducing all of these characters and giving them their due in our first film. When Disney and 20th Century Fox merged in 2019, the X-Men characters became available to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Some of the actors that were in the Fox films will reprise their roles for the upcoming Avengers Doomsday film set to be released December 18th, 2026. The actors that were previously played in X-Men characters back in the older X-Men films include Patrick Stewart, Charles Xavier, Professor X, Ian McKellen's Magneto, Alan Cummings' Nightcrawler, Rebecca Romijn's Mystique, James Marsden's Cyclops, and Channing Tatum's Gambit from Wolverine and Deadpool. So these will be some of the characters that we'll see appearing in Doomsday. But eventually, the X-Men universe will be rebooted with a younger, more fresh-faced cast that will lead an X-Men franchise for the next 10 to 15 years. So that is really exciting. You know, as I said before, what is going on? As I said before, it is important that we have a director like Jake Schreier that understands X-Men is a very complex group of characters, all ranging from, you know, different trauma in their life, different things dealing with the unique abilities that they have and how that affects them and who they are in the world that they inhabit. You know, X-Men is ultimately an allegory for racism in America. And that's what it stemmed from when it came out in the 60s, in the civil rights era. And so for Jake Schreier to understand how complex this is, how each character is different in their own right, how each character really could carry their own franchise in some kind of way, he is really understanding that the source material is inherently interesting and complex and going to bring that to the new X-Men that we're going to see for the next 10, 15 years. And so it's not easy to do, to, you know, I guess give a spotlight to every X-Men character in a 2-hour X-Men movie. But it seems like based on the Thunderbolts, he's really able to dive into the interpersonal relationships within the group while understanding that everyone has their own trauma, their own thing that they're dealing with internally. And I think when Thunderbolts, he did it in spades. You know, Thunderbolts deals with very, very serious themes of depression, anxiety, not fitting in, self-harm, suicide, contemplating suicide, very, very dark themes that we don't see within a comic book world. And so the fact that he's already got to play in that sandbox with Thunderbolts and bring that to an X-Men movie, I think is a great way of thinking for Jake Schreier, the new director, and someone that I have no doubt can really give us an X-Men that we have not seen before. So I think without saying too much, he is saying everything of what an X-Men movie will potentially look like within the MCU. And so I'm really excited. I think this is the right way to go with X-Men. I think the past X-Men movies have been hit or miss. Of course, there's been some bangers, and of course, there's been some bangers representation of characters like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. That's going to be extremely hard, to recast. And also Professor X, Patrick Stewart was a fantastic Professor X. Rebecca Romijn is a great Mystique, even though they did not give her a lot of speaking lines. Jennifer Lawrence was a good Mystique as well, I think, in some regards. And so, there's been some great castings, but this is a real opportunity to scale it back, go younger, stay with these same characters with a visionary that can stay with these characters for a while and see these stories play out over several movies. And so I think this is a great opportunity to represent X-Men in a way that is more faithful to the comics that we haven't really seen in any other X-Men movie before. And Jake Schreier leading the charge, I think, is a great director for the job, which we have seen his examples within Thunderbolt. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited about all of it. The MCU, now that we've gotten Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts in the same year, we can kind of get a sense that the MCU is back on track in a lot of ways. They are willing to dive into deeper storytelling, more depth with characters, more interesting third acts instead of, the big, world's ending, which they do have a lot of that. It's earned within the movies because we understand the characters a lot more because the work was done in acts 1 and 2 of the movies. And so I think based on Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, I have a lot more faith in where we're going with Doomsday, with Spider-Man, with X-Men, because it seems like we're getting back to a place that made the MCU great, which is original storytelling that is also appealing to a wider audience, striking that balance, which it seems like in the past couple years, it was a little harder for them to do. But it seems like with the last 2 movies, the MCU is finally getting back on track. So I have a lot of faith, a lot more than I had maybe a year ago or so. And so I think this is really exciting. And I think Jake Schreier is a great director to lead the charge. All right, guys. We're going to move on to our main topic. And after that, we're going to do a little trailer watch with Zootopia 2, which I am very excited about. So without further ado, let's get in to our final topic. And this is an interesting one, my friends. This is a very interesting one because as reported earlier, the Odyssey is becoming Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is becoming an event movie. For the first time, tickets went on sale in select theaters in IMAX 70 millimeter a year before the movie came out and sold out within an hour, and were being resold tickets online for $300 to $400. This movie is hot. It's already made over $1 million before the movies even come out, and we already have almost a year to wait for this movie. But it seems like the Odyssey has landed in a little bit of a controversy, and it may be been unbeknownst to the director, Christopher Nolan. This comes to us from Deadline. They say Christopher Nolan has been criticized for shooting elements of Universal's all-star epic, The Odyssey, in Morocco-occupied Western Sahara. Earlier this month, the British director filmed for 4 days near the coastal city of, and sorry if I pronounce this incorrectly, Dakhla, which is part of a region that the United Nations has designated as a non-self-governing territory since 1963. Western Sahara, which has become a magnet for big budget shoots like the Prime Video series The Wheel of Time, is not legally part of Morocco, But the US and UK are among Western governments to recently endorse the North African nation's claim over the land. The Western Sahara International Film Festival, Sahara, which takes place in the Sahari refugee camps in Algeria, called on Nolan to urgently halt shooting in the region. Universal has been contacted for comment. Dakhla is not just a beautiful location with cinematic sand dunes. Primarily, it is an occupied, militarized city whose indigenous Sahari populations is subject to brutal repression by occupying Moroccan forces, says the festival. By filming part of the Odyssey in occupied territory, billed as a news black hole, pretty much where news doesn't get reported on of the horrendous things that are happening there, by Reporters Without Borders, Nolan and his team, perhaps unknowingly and unwillingly, are contributing to the repression of the Sahari people by Morocco. In a statement, Sahara, the film festival, continued, we are sure that if they were to understand the full implications of filming such a high-profile film in a territory whose indigenous peoples are unable to make their own films about their stories under occupation, Nolan and his team would be horrified. Morocco routinely touts Sahari cultural expressions as uniquely Moroccan. They created a film festival in Dakhla to counter ours and produce high-budget films that portray Western Sahara as part of Morocco. However, Saharis trying to make films about their lives are persecuted and must work clandestinely and at great risk to themselves and their families. Sahara has been supported by actors including Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz in the past. Bardem posted the Sahara statement regarding the Odyssey, arguing that Dakhla was converted by the Moroccan occupiers into a tourist destination, and now a film set, always with the aim of erasing the Sahari identity to the city. Whew. So it seems like the Odyssey unknowingly has filmed in Morocco-occupied Western Sahara, and that because there are these atrocious things happening there, that they're upset that it's being converted to, I guess, a way of ignoring what's happening there and having more, Western areas film there, make money off of them there, without really diving into the atrocities that are really going on with the people indigenous to that land that are being highly affected. And so it seems like, I don't know, really, I'm trying to understand, but this is an honest mistake by Christopher Nolan and team, that if they knew more about what was going on there, that they would be, oh, thank you, Jihadi, that they would be more, aware that this is not the appropriate place to film at this time. So I don't know. I can't speak for Christopher Nolan, but it seems like there was a lot of stuff going on in the Western Sahara, unbeknownst to Christopher Nolan and team, that if they did know, that they would not be filming there. Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz are big advocates and champions of bringing light to the atrocities that are going on with the indigenous people in the Western Sahara area. And so it seems like there's already a lot of bigger name celebrities that are aware and that are trying to counter this. Even Javier Bardem going as far as posting about Christopher Nolan filming there, making it aware that this is an issue that should be recognized so that other people aren't willingly going to film in a occupied area where atrocious things are happening to the indigenous people, and the news is being ignored about what is happening to them. So it seems like there's already celebrities that are trying to make that message well known. And so it seems like it's unfortunate that Christopher Nolan didn't know about these things and his team didn't know. Unfortunately, I don't know, when it comes to scouting these areas, maybe they didn't do their research as best as they could, but I can't defend them because I don't know what they did. All I know is the facts, and the facts are that they did film there. They filmed there for 4 days. I don't know if they have plans to go back there. Probably not now after realizing what is going on in these areas. And so it's quite interesting. This is such a hot movie, but at the same time, the locations that they are filming, there is atrocious stuff happening there to a lot of people that are indigenous to the Western Sahara area. And so it's very interesting. I'm not sure if this has happened in the past, especially with such a big name director like Christopher Nolan. So the counter to it, not so much the counter, but maybe the silver lining, is that it brings more light to the issues that are happening in this area, because now it is attached to a big name director like Christopher Nolan, who, as we know, his movie already sold out tickets a year before it's even coming out. So maybe that's the silver lining. Maybe that's something we can take away from this, is that a positive thing is that is now bringing light to the atrocities that are happening in the Western Sahara area. And Christopher Nolan being such a big name makes the issue more well known to the general public. So it is unfortunate that this is happening, that there's negative press going on with the movie in Christopher Nolan. But the more important thing is the people indigenous to the area that they are filming, and bringing light to the atrocities and the things that are happening to these people is the most important thing. And so the silver lining is now it is getting more spotlight, and hopefully more can be done now that more know what is really going on there. So I can't speak too much. It's geopolitical stuff that I am not privy to, that I am not as smart as other people who, are more well-versed in this area, but I do think it's important to talk about. And I do think it's interesting how the film industry and what's going on in the world can kind of Venn diagram and really be affected by each other. So it's really interesting, and I definitely would check it out, and definitely check out this deadline report. Okay, guys, we're almost done, but I really wanted to get into Zootopia trailer that dropped earlier this morning. I love Zootopia 1. I think Zootopia 1 is one of the better Disney animated movies that has come out in a very long time. And so when they announced that they were doing a sequel, I was really excited, but I was also wondering, this world is so vast that they created. What could this movie really be about? So let's sit here. Let's do a trailer watch for Zootopia 2.
Welcome to Partners in Crisis. I'm your therapy animal, Dr. Fuzzbee. Greg, we talked about that. What are we making Merlin? Uncomfortable. Yes. And Francine, Clark may be a mouse, but he is your partner first. And we have 2 new partners. Can you tell us about your journey to Dysfunction Junction?
They're back
Well,
together.
we've been official partners for 1 week. Happy anniversary. And
So
we
it's
are
only
functioning
takes place 1
fine.
week
Better
after
than
the
fine.
movie.
And we did
Original.
sort of save the city. So us being here kind of seems like a huge misunderstanding.
Notice how she answered first, did not allow her partner to speak, and taps her foot when she's suppressing discomfort. And observe the source of her discomfort, represented by the disconnected affectation of her emotionally insecure partner. But for
This is
now,
so
we
good.
begin by greeting our teammate. Okay, unfortunately, Karen has chosen to see Joel's smile as a sign of aggression. Hackles down, Karen.
Animals that are
Hackles
natural
down. Someone
enemies.
get the hose.
Bunny, fox, This is a make or break assignment. Fail and I will split you up.
No snake has set foot in Zootopia in forever.
Hops and Wild.
Wild and Hops. The dream team. Sorry, Paul.
1, 2, 3, 4.
This looks good.
Get the second ring right now. Stop in the name of the law. I'm really sorry. No. Stop pulling my ears. Stop pulling my ears. Never pull up on his ears. I have to help my family.
Animation looks great. Storyline, fantastic.
This is not your worst idea.
Wow, that was almost a compliment.
Your worst idea is what you did with your ears.
November coming up not too far. Wow.
When
Very
you
good.
decide to step up to
Very good. So that trailer looks really exciting. Zootopia 1 was so good. So many great bits, and it looks like this is continuing it down to the therapy of different animals who are actually partners, in crime in this world, are actually in our world enemies to each other. And so it's really funny, those animal instincts, mixing them in like real world situations. I think Zootopia is a great movie, and this is such a great way in. Again, is like, even after their adventure, there's still a fox and the rabbit. Fox and rabbits do not get along. And so I love that it's not like everything's happy, hunky dory. No, they have a respect for each other, but they still are completely different animals that need to learn how to get along with each other. Have you ever heard this before? Have you ever worked with someone like this? I think so. So this is what they do. And it's such an intelligent, smart way and to a mirror of our world. And I just love how they do this. Yeah, it's taken a little bit of time, but I think it's appropriate. I think the first one came out in, I might be wrong, but like 2016. And so it's been about 9 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think this is a great way in to continue this relationship, to continue the growing pains of what it's like for a fox and a rabbit to work together. And I'm really excited to see it. So drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a comment below and let me know what you guys think about all these topics that we talked about. These are really interesting things, and I want you guys to be a part of the conversation and like, subscribe, be a part of the community, because that's the best part about this, is talking to you guys, talking to each other, hearing about each other, and having really great, respectful conversation. So I hope you're here for the journey. I hope you like, I hope you subscribe. And yeah, we usually do this twice a week. It's been a little funky because we did the Fantastic Four First Steps spoiler discussion on Sunday. I want to get a little bit more news in and do this on Wednesday. So we'll try and do this again probably on Monday, and Mondays and Fridays is where the sweep spot will be, unless there's anything cool or important that needs to be talked about. And then we'll be doing trailer watches. So I hope you watch along with the trailer watches. That being said, that will do it for the show. Hope you guys have a great second half to your week. Let's get through it. Let's watch some stuff. Go to the theaters. Respect the movie theater staff because they're working hard, and see a movie with someone that you love, because that's the best part. And if you don't have anyone, I used to go to the movie theaters by myself all the time. And the best part is enjoying it with random people, laughing, crying, having a good time, because that's the best part about movies, is the experience. And the experience can be next to people that you've never met in your life. They could become your best friends. So go to the movie theaters, have a great time, be safe, and we will see you guys next time. Take care, my friends. Bye.
It's the Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. It's the Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. It's the Evan edition.